What's going on, guys? This is DaWoblefet, and I'm here with the final round of Swiss in my Players Cup 4 North American Regional Qualifier run. I'm playing against an opponent named Jourdan. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce their last name because I'm going to get it wrong. They go by Professor Ragna online, which is a pretty cool name. I don't actually know if they're an actual Pokemon professor or not, but if they are, that's cool. That takes a long time to actually get certified with that. You have to volunteer at a lot of different events. I have mad respect for players who continue to play after they gain professorship, but I don't actually know if that's the case here. So this is another one of those games where I forgot to record team preview properly. So as you can see on the screen, my opponent has a very defensive team, and I am licking my chops because this is the exact kind of team that I want to fight against. I love these sorts of slow, grindy games. They're the most fun for me to play. I can play the hyper offense, Lando helping hand stuff, but what I really love is those slow, grindy plays where you're trying to think several turns ahead about who can win based on positioning and who has their pieces left that they need in order to be able to clean up the game. So my opponent has Taunt Grimmsnarl as well as Taunt Spectrier. They're running the same Spectrier set as I am, although they have Focus Sash instead of my safety goggles. They have Registeel, but thankfully they're not Sand Tomb. They are Amnesia, which is great because Amnesia won't matter in this matchup. Lumberry Garchomp does look pretty threatening. That will be really tough for my Spectrier to deal with. I'll have to use 2 Will-O-Wisps in order to deal with it effectively. But the Pichu doesn't look very threatening. All in all, my opponent is not really well prepped to deal with Swords Dance Landorus, in my opinion, especially with Clefairy by its side. I'm going to be able to get up at least one Swords Dance, no matter what they... Well, I guess not no matter what they lead, but they could lead like Fake Out plus stuff. But if they bring Rillaboom into me, that's not good. If they try to Registeel me, I've got a Taunt Will-O-Wisp Spectrier, I've got Clefairy, I've got Registeel. I'm looking pretty good against that, so... Registeel on my side is also looking really good. I've got to watch out for their Spectrier, because they can endgame me just the same way that I can endgame them. It's really just going to come down to play. And I think one of the ways for me to gain an advantage in this matchup is to break my opponent early with Dynamax. So what I want to do is my opponent doesn't really have a great immediate offensive... They don't have really great immediate offensive pressure. The most they've got is maxing their Garchomp, sort of. But not even that, really. Or maybe maxing Rillaboom. Either way, neither of those are going to be very effective at the immediate max, whereas I have very powerful immediate maxes in my Lando, so I'm looking to try to get Lando on the board and do very effective with that. So my opponent leads off with Grimmsnarl and Porygon 2, and we get to see my download strat, I guess, in action. My opponent is going to get an attack boost from their Porygon 2 here, because the sum of the defense on my Clefairy and Landorus is lower than the sum of my special defense. So the download will pick attack in that case. So that means I have a fairly free Swords Dance here. My opponent does have Taunt on their Grimmsnarl. I'm expecting them to want to Taunt on my Clefairy. I have the option of going for Follow Me, to guarantee to block that, but I'm not really too miffed about that. I'm going to go ahead and just Swords Dance. They're going to taunt into my Clefairy. They don't want to get singed. They've got to respect that option, so I'll go ahead and just do that. So my opponent does go for the taunt, but they taunted to my Lando. I'm like, nice! I'm like, that's a respectable play. That's a super respectable play. And they go for Trick Room. That would have been hard for me to punish. My hardest punish to that would have been Helping Hand Max Move. Or I guess a Sing, but... that was really nice because now I don't really have anything that wants to switch into the Prankster Taunt on that side. However, my opponent does have to make a tough choice here. If they go for Taunt into my Clefairy, well, if they don't go for Taunt to my Clefairy, then I can Sing them, and that wouldn't be good. I was considering going for Sing there, but I think it's pretty likely they're going to go for Taunt. And so what I can do is force their hand. Either they go for Taunt into my Clefairy, or they go for Reflect. If they go for Taunt, then they stop my Clefairy next turn. If they go for Reflect, they survive this turn, but next turn, I still have my Clefairy available to use Protect or Follow Me as I please. So I'm still going to be breaking through my opponent's board. My opponent bringing Grimmsnarl here is, I'm pretty happy to see this. Grimmsnarl offers very little outside of the taunt. Reflect will lower my damage output, but they have to actually click Reflect, and they didn't in this case, so. Taunt to Clefairy isn't great, but it means I'm not going to go down. Tri-Attack into Landorus does very low damage. My opponent does have Ice Beam, so I'm not entirely sure why that was a Tri-Attack. It wouldn't even be for, like, hacks, because you can Ice Beam Freeze me, and that would be more powerful. I mean, you have much better odds of doing that with Ice Beam than with Tri-Attack, so. Not sure why there was a Tri-Attack there. Probably just half covering for the Follow Me, and just wanting to put some damage on Lando. Some damage on Lando is good damage on Lando. Next turn, a follow-up Ice Beam, especially if Clefairy switches out, which it's very inclined to. Will do a lot of damage. I do want to switch my Clefairy out. If I stay in, that would be nice. Staying in would allow me to have the Friend Guard boost. I would take this Ice Beam a lot better. But I should survive this Ice Beam plus Body Press combination attack, which is great. What I can do is I can, again, force them to not attack me. I can force them to use Iron Defense with their Registeel, which is great because effectively what I'm doing with this, I can switch straight into my Spectre, and this is very hard for them to punish. If they want to Body Press me, I'm not convinced that Ice Beam plus Body Press will actually knock out my Landorus. And even if it does, I'm going to get my Spectre in for relatively free. I can start throwing Taunt, Will-O-Wisp. Like, Spectre has lots of good things that I can do here. And if they don't KO me, then I get a special defense boost on my Spectre, which is going to make it impossible for Porygon 2 to be able to knock me out fast enough. And as you can see, Ice Beam plus Body Press would have never done enough. So, this Max Quake here into the Registeel just throws a good chunk of damage on it. I didn't need it to knock it out. This is mostly just saying, all right, you have to do Iron Defense here. You don't have another choice. My taunt has worn off at the end of this turn as well, because they had taunted me in the first turn, then I Dynamaxed the second turn. But I'm looking great here. I've got +2 special defense, so again, they have to double target my Landorus in order to knock it out, which means my Spectre has a free turn for me to do whatever I want with it. I can opt for the Max Quake again. I go for Max Guard. I remember I was debating between Max Quake and Max Guard, although you didn't see me hover over in the screen there. My opponent uses Protect with Registeel, and I'm totally fine with that, because Ice Beam should not knock out my Landorus. We saw that how little it did the first time. And you can see exactly how important that download roll is. Being able to survive this attack and doing a ton of damage back with Max Quake. This is a critical hit, of course. But even without the critical hit, that would have done massive amounts of damage into the Porygon 2. My Landorus does faint from the interaction, but at this point, well done, Landorus. You've done heavy damage to 3 of their members and set up my Spectre to be near invincible against this, what's currently on the field. If my opponent has their own Spectre in the back, Shadow Ball is going to do very low damage to me. This is looking good. I can go into my Clefairy as well very safely. My opponent can't really damage my Clefairy at all. This is going to buy me the turns that I need. I could go straight into Registeel and just try to Iron Defense myself, but I don't want to do that quite yet. I want to burn this Registeel, potentially get a taunt down on it. I want to mess with this board a little bit more before I go straight into that. And plus, again, they can't damage my Clefairy either. So they've got, if they want to switch out their Registeel and lose their boost, they can do that. They also have to dodge a Sing. Importantly, we see the Registeel here is slower than the Porygon 2, so that also means my Registeel is going to be faster than them out of Trick Room, which will be great. I also managed to hit the Sing, so Sing doing what Sing does best this run, actually hitting and putting my opponents to sleep, which is fantastic. Now I go for the Will-O-Wisp, and I also connect to that. So both of my status moves connecting here, very important. My opponent's Registeel is now significantly neutered. They are at, I believe, +2 defense. I don't think they've gotten another, because they just used Amnesia here, which also doesn't really do anything. They may be predicting that I have Regieleki in the back. Perhaps they're expecting that I didn't actually bring the Registeel myself, but no, I do have my Registeel in the back. And so now I have a free taunt into the Porygon 2 and switch. If the Porygon 2 had taken a little bit more damage, I probably would have been inclined to Snarl. Snarl would have knocked it out and then given my Spectre a Beast Boost, or not a Beast Boost, but Grenade boost. I would have gotten a special attack boost in one of those abilities. The Paragon 2 also remains asleep, which is great for me. My opponent goes for Amnesia again, but at this point they know that Amnesias don't matter. If my Spectre ends up in a 1v1 versus the Registeel, doesn't matter how much special defense it has, it will lose on timer. Unless they manage to damage my Spectre significantly, and they are currently not in a great position to do so. Because now, my opponent's Porygon 2 is taunted. It's still sleeping. It can't do anything. Registeel's about to be taunted. It's burned. It can't really do anything. So they switch out into Garchomp, and I'm like, okay, this is their Dynamax option. Registeel protects, so I can't just freely taunt it, which is a little bit annoying. But I'm going to get my +2 defense on my Registeel, and that's great. So now at this point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, how does my opponent come back into this game? This opponent, my opponent has Lumberry and Swords Dance on their Garchomp. Because they're Lumberry on Garchomp, Garchomp will not be able to knock out Spectre in a single hit with its Max Quake. So I'm like, the only way that I think they can come back is with Swords Dance here. So even if they Dynamax their Garchomp straight away, that's fine, because then my Registeel will get more boosts. And at this point, I'm planning for a Registeel endgame. I'm wanting Registeel to win, not Spectre, so I'm okay with potentially losing my Spectre to 2 Max Quakes. But my opponent does go for the Swords Dance like I predicted. I felt like that was their best way of coming back into the game. And so I go for Iron Defense, they go for Iron Defense. We're doing our Registeel thing. We're just vibing together. We got some ums in the chat, or however the Twitchers would say that. But yeah, I'm at +3 defense now. I can go to +4 if I want to. I'm at full health. My Spectre is also at full health. I've got to Will-O-Wisp the Garchomp twice. Again, the Garchomp can't actually knock out my Spectre in one hit, so despite the Lumberry, if I hit 2 Will-O-Wisps in a row, then I would be able to actually burn this Garchomp, and that would like almost certainly steal the game for me. My opponent probably couldn't break Spectre at that point. So again, they have to pick here. Do they Quake into my Spectre and do, you know, probably like 75, 80 damage, and then get Will-O-Wisp the next turn? Or do they hit the Registeel, and if they hit the Registeel, then my Spectre can win. So I think they're kind of in a catch-22. They're stuck no matter what. My Will-O-Wisp hitting is impactful here as to how that works, and then also if my opponent gets potentially multiple critical hits, but no critical hits to be found, at least with that Max Quake there. The special defense boosts shouldn't matter. My Registeel is now at +6 defense, which will be joined shortly by Ragna's Registeel. Oh, no, that's right. It goes for Body Press this turn, which does very low damage thanks to the burn. Even with a +4 defense, because I'm also at +6 defense, it's doing very little damage. Perhaps my opponent was attempting to critical hit my Registeel and just throwing as many attacks as it could against that for that purpose. I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't actually see how else you win this game, so throwing critical hits at the Registeel makes sense. But again, if you attack the Registeel too much, then you're not dealing any damage to the Spectre. Spectre being at full HP and Registeel also being at very, very healthy amounts of HP means I'm in the driver's seat. My opponent can't max guard because of the taunt earlier, so if they don't switch out into Porygon 2 and I don't miss, this Will-O-Wisp will connect on Garchomp, and that makes this Garchomp nigh useless. You can't crit through burn. This is going to do no damage to either slot that it hits. Registeel takes the attack, and it deals 4 damage. More damage! 4 whole damage! Yeah, and the Registeel can't do anything either. What's it gonna do? Go to +6? Sure. Well, whatever. Yeah, at this point, I've got status on all of my opponent's Pokemon. My Spectre is at full health. My Registeel is at near full health. I've got Clefairy in the back, which is, I think, at full health. I'm looking very, very good in this game. It's not over. I haven't, like, won the game right here or anything, but there's still some more Pokemon to be played, but I decided to double target the Registeel just to try and knock it out. I figured since it has +6 defense, it getting a critical hit is going to be a lot more impactful than the Garchomp getting a critical hit. because the Registeel just necessarily has more offense right now. The Max Quake goes into Spectre, so that's one less critical hit chance on my Registeel, which is great. You can see that it would not have 2-hit KO'd. The Max Quake is unable to boost Registeel's special defense any further. I go for the body press into Registeel. Just barely misses out on the KO, but that's going to be in KO range next turn of either a Shadow Ball or a body press. So we get to see our lovely Leftovers animations play out once again. These aren't going anywhere anytime soon. I like how Grassy Terrain is just, it just plays the healing animation. It doesn't play the item activation animation, so it's a little bit quicker, but it's still really slow. If you played in Sun and Moon, you know that the animations for the end of turn effects were so terribly slow. We are lucky for what we have here. So I decided to go for a taunt into Garchomp and Protect. The reason I decided to do this, now this is a little bit hyper safe, but I wanted to do this just to make sure that they couldn't Sword Stance. I could go for the Shadow Ball into the Registeel, but I don't really need the Registeel dead right now. I can kill it pretty well whenever I want to with my Pokemon Outspeed and will knock it out. My opponent doesn't go for the Earthquake with their Protect play. They just go for Rock Slide, and that's going to do diddly squat to my Spectre. It does bring it into the yellow, but it's going to need a lot more of those to actually knock me out. And so at this point, if I recall correctly, I made a pretty not key misplay, but it was a minor misplay. So I think here, since the Registeel just used Protect, I should have used Shadow Ball into the Registeel and Body Press the Garchomp. For some reason, I did it the other way around. I don't really know why. I would get a Grim Knight boost if I KO'd the Registeel. Even if I didn't think that it would KO for some reason, it doesn't really matter, because next turn, surely the next Shadow Ball KOs. And if I don't do this, then the Garchomp can potentially flinch me, and the Registeel can get a critical hit on me. So it's a little bit worse that way. Not playing my odds quite correctly, but a lot has to go wrong for me to lose this game. The Shadow Ball does go off into the Garchomp. Deals a little bit of damage. Not a whole lot happening here. Hit the Rock Slide. Big boy damage to Registeel. Huge damage, huge flinch. Body Press goes off into my Registeel. So if this crits, it's actually really bad for me. It's not the end of the... Like, even if it does crit, though, first of all, I'm not sure if it kills or not. Like, let's assume it does kill. I still have my Clefairy in the back, and Clefairy should let me defeat the combination of Garchomp, Registeel, and Porygon 2, because at that point, I would just Snarl, I guess Helping Hand Snarl, and then Helping Hand Snarl again, knock out the Porygon 2, then Helping Hand Shadow Ball the Garchomp. And that should be a game. So, my opponent does protect their Registeel again. They're trying. Can't blame them, but they gotta get a lot of hacks going their way. No Rock Slide this time. Just a good old EQ. Dealing enough damage to my Spectre that it would knock it out next turn if I had the chance, but this time I actually target the Garchomp instead of hitting the Registeel and knock it out. So now this game is pretty certainly over. We saw that the Registeel was slower than their Porygon 2, so it is possible that their Porygon 2 is faster than my Registeel. It would be very unusual for it to be. I can't really think of a good reason why it would be. It is Tri-Attack, so sometimes they do max their Porygon 2s and then take advantage of the speed drop. So if they outspeed my Registeel and go for Tri-Attack into it, they can potentially, or I guess you don't even have to go for Tri-Attack because Ice Beam at that point is fine. You can Ice Beam, get the freeze on Registeel, and then I remain frozen forever. But even if I remain frozen forever, I will eventually just recover enough HP to go back to full. Even if they recover stall, I've got Clefairy. Like, it would take them forever, and if they did freeze me, I would just timer stall them, so there's pretty much no way out. And I just, I either outspeed or they click Trick Room, one of the two. No guarantee either way, but I probably just outspeed, so. that worked out really well for me. It was a nice, slow, grindy game. That took nearly the full 20 minutes. If I'm looking at the timer right for how long we progressed in the video, I believe we were coming on the 3-minute mark. So my opponent, even if something crazy had happened, I would have been able to just time them out. I have no qualms about timing my opponents out. I will happily do it. I will do it even if I'm already winning. If I can guarantee a win by timer stalling my opponent, I will do so. And hopefully it doesn't come to that. But now I've got to put my brain on again and think, okay, do I need to switch things up? Was there anything that I could do to press the advantage harder than what I already had? So one thing that would be really good is if I could stop them from saying Trick Room. So I could lead like Spectre and Clefairy to do that. I could guarantee stop Trick Room that way, but honestly, I think that's a little bit unnecessary. If I just do the same thing again, my opponent's going to be in big trouble. They've got to make the adjustment here, not me. If their adjustment, for example, is not bringing Registeel, then they have no switch-ins to max flying, to just give an example. If their adjustment is to lead with Spectre, then I can go for the max flying turn 1. I mean, if they lead like P2 Spectre, I guess it'd be annoying, but they're not going to be doing a lot of damage to me. They could do a lot of damage reduction on me, but it's kind of the same thing in reverse. They've got to position their Dynamax a little bit better, or else I'm going to be just doing the exact same thing to them as what happened in Game 1. My opponent is thinking here quite a lot about what to do in Game 2, which also somewhat surprised me a little bit. And I mean no disrespect in this, but I felt like they had a lot of opportunity to think there in the end of Game 1. I don't really know what much there was to think about for how to possibly win Game 1. But they're taking their time. They are certainly allowed to, and I can very much respect that. I do that all the time. I'll think even when I have an idea of what I want to do. But my opponent doesn't switch anything up. They lead with Grimmsnarl P2 again. And I think that this is going to be really costly for them because now I can identify something that did go wrong in Game 1 for me. My Landorus got taunted turn 1. And I think if I make the follow me trade, that's good enough for me. Because if I follow me, suppose they taunt my Clefairy, I go for Swords Dance, they're not going to be able to knock me out. I can do heavy damage back to them. I'll be able to knock out the Grimmsnarl, can do heavy damage to the P2 on the following turn. I could even stay in with Clefairy. I'd be willing to stay in with Clefairy on that and just take a struggle turn. And then next turn switch into my Spectre. And I'm basically going to do the exact same thing. So this is all really good for me. I'm feeling really good about this. And then my opponent goes to Reflect. And I'm like, oh, this is like perfect. I really can't ask for a better turn than this. So if my opponent goes for the Ice Beam here, like hard reading that my P2 would protect, that's great for me. If they go for Trick Room, that's, not bad for me. At this point, they're in real big trouble. Now, I could go for the Follow Me and Swords Dance again, be a little bit greedy. That way, a +4 Max Quake would just straight up one-shot P2. But I don't feel like I need to do that. I'm just going to go for Follow Me. I'm just going to go for Max Quake, take some knockouts, do some big damage to stuff. By getting special defense boosts on my Landorus, the Porygon 2 won't be able to break through me. Because, again, it doesn't have the special attack boost. And that is so key. So, Lando's Mega Max here. Grimmsnarl's going down for sure. So it can either set up the Light Screen, Spirit Break, or taunt my Clef. It probably wants to taunt my Clef. If I had protected my Clefairy, I would have been able to stop that. But Follow Meing away, a potential Ice Beam chance, I thought was fine. Getting even one attack off here, even if they froze me the next turn, would have been good. They go for the Tri-Attack again, so good play. Knowing my Clefairy was going to go for Follow Me, I am able to get the Max Quake off into the Grimmsnarl though, and take a really nice knockout. So Grimmsnarl's down. They do have a Reflect up, but not the end of the world. I've got a +2 attack Landorus with a +1 special defense boost. And anything I switch in here in the back is going to be good. If they can't go into the Spectre because we're in Trick Room right now, Garchomp can't switch in here either. They go into Registeel again, and I'm like, I think I just do the same thing. I'm just going to switch into my... why did I switch into my Registeel? I feel like I could have just switched into my Spectre and just won. But, oh well. I decided to switch into my Registeel this time for some reason. Yeah, I feel like Spectre makes a lot more sense in hindsight. That's really strange. I mean, I saw how well that worked in Game 1, too. Because now the Registeel is pressuring me. Oh well. The Ice Beam comes out. I do remember this. They ended up getting a critical hit on my Landorus, which really sucks. My Landorus would have been at above half HP, and so I would have been able to survive another Ice Beam easily. Another Ice Beam plus Body Press with no trouble at all. But now I'm very low on HP, so that's not good. I also know, I checked here, I wanted to check to make sure, okay, there are 2 turns of Trick Room left. So, here I have the option if I want to. I can go for Max Quake into Porygon 2, or I can go for Max Guard with Lando, and Body Press into Porygon 2 and take it out. And so I hard read my opponent to go for the Recover here with their P2. Not wanting me to just knock them out with like the Max Guard play or whatever. And I'm sure that they weren't feeling too good after not seeing the Landorus go for a defensive play. Instead, I go for an Iron Defense. And despite the Reflect that was set up earlier on their team, my Max Quake is going to do a significant amount of damage to this Porygon 2. And it is able to knock it out, so this is just phenomenal for me. If my opponent has Garchomp in the back, so be it. I have +2 defense now. I still have my Clefairy at full. Well, not at full. I've taken Tri-Attack chip damage. But I also have my Spectre. There's still a turn of Trick Room left. But things are looking up. I'm feeling pretty good here. I get to go into my Spectre. They also go into their Spectre. But at this point, I'm feeling pretty good. Now, at this, I do remember, I thought for some reason, I was convinced in my mind that they were going to go for a Will-O-Wisp onto my Registeel this turn. I was utterly convinced of this. But they did not have to do this. They could have maxed their Spectre, and we're still in Trick Room. And they do have Focus Sash on the Spectre, so we're either speed tying or something. But if they max their Spectre, I won't be able to kill them because of the Focus Sash, and because Heavy Slam won't do any damage to the Dynamax Spectre. So, Dynamax here would be just awful for me, but for some reason I had in my head, I remember, this probably also was some of the fatigue coming in. This is the 9th round of Swiss, but for some reason I had in my head that they were going to Will-O-Wisp me. And lo and behold, there's no Dynamax, so that means I do win this game, because Heavy Slam and Shadow Ball are going to be enough to knock out the Spectre. Even if, so I actually do win a speed tie, but even if the Spectre does win the speed tie, it would have to win the speed tie by Shadow Balling my Spectre and getting a critical hit. Because otherwise I would survive the attack, because it's not Life Orb, so I guaranteed survive that attack. And now the game's just over. There's absolutely nothing my opponent can do. Even if I miss all my Will-O-Wisps and they crit all their Body Presses, they won't be able to beat my Spectre on timer. And so that's what I'm doing now. I'm just going to go ahead and wait it out. And this game is over. So if you want, you can watch me timer stall a Registeel for 5 minutes. But if not, I'm not going to be talking about the game any longer. I just want to talk a little bit about and reflect on my matches overall as a whole, since I do have a little bit of time to do that, rather than delaying the video after the match at the end. I think overall in this Swiss run, I got pretty lucky. Now as soon as I say that, I missed the Will-O-Wisp, but it doesn't matter at that point. I think overall I got super lucky. Like there were only a few turns throughout the entire run that went poorly for me, and there were a lot of turns that went really well for me. A lot of those, in my opinion, and now this is just my opinion, I'm sure my opponents would feel differently, and I'm hoping that you, as an objective observer, being able to watch these games. Hopefully, you've had the opportunity to watch some of my other games. If this is your first game watching, hopefully you're enjoying the Registeel Mir. But I felt like a lot of my luck that came, especially like with Sing, was because I was in good positions. I made the correct moves, and I got overly rewarded for those plays. I got better than what I was anticipating, and because of those very fortunate things, I feel like overall my luck was really good. And sometimes when your luck is that good, you have to step back and think, okay, is it because my luck is that good, or is it because I'm doing things that increase the odds of me getting lucky? And if it's the latter, if you're doing things that increase the odds of you getting lucky, then that's a good thing. You want to do that. Like if you're flinching your opponent with Rock Slide consistently, what that means is that you're getting faster than your opponent, and you have more opportunities to flinch them. Especially in a Dynamax meta where you can't flinch your opponent as often anymore, which is a good thing. At this point, also, if you're still watching the game for content, here I'm going for Protect Taunt on the Registeel just to make sure it can't Amnesia, and then I'll start Shadow Balling it. I just want to, play hyper safe. I'm not trying to lose here. Even if I did lose, I would still have another game to do this to them, but I want this just to be over. But I want to make sure that's 100% over. I also remember at this point, my opponent and I were chatting in the battle fight chat, which was kind of funny. I also don't really know why my opponent didn't forfeit. To tell you the truth, I don't know what they expected to happen here. I guess they were just being nice and letting me play how I wanted here at the end. But yeah, I feel like my run was very fortunate. And now that I'm going to be moving into a double elimination bracket where my opponents are known in advance, I can actually abuse something that I think I'm really good at. I think one of the things, this is one of my best skills, although I don't get to use it very often, and that's dedicated preparation. When I have a lot of information about my opponent's team, and I have a lot of time to prepare, I feel like I do very, very well. So I was looking forward to the opportunity to play in regional finals, because all I need to do is win a few games, and I can do that. I can win a few games. I won a few to get here. I just need to win a few more. So also, as you can see here, the Shadow Ball does do a lot of damage to the Registeel. I probably could have just attacked rather than trying to guarantee this with timer stalling, but again, I wanted to be a million % sure that I would win. But at this point, I know I don't need to timer stall because Shadow Ball will just do enough as it is. So I've got this game. But yeah, I'm looking forward to preparing for the next stage of competition. And I was also very this was really, again, if I'm gonna hammer this point for the last time. My goal this tournament was to win a single game, and now I've top cut effectively the event. I've top cut the event. I haven't made it to the finals, but I've top cut the event, and that's exceeded my expectations by a significant margin. So I don't mean to take away from my opponent here, Jourdan. I thought this was a good game. I thought this was a very competitive game. I enjoyed playing it a lot, at least. And so very good games from my opponent there. Appreciate them being a good sport about it as well in chat. They congratulated me on making it to finals and were very encouraging. I know for my sake, when I play in tournaments like that and I lose in the final round or I lose close to the final round, I'm usually typically very glum, and I will offer congratulations to my opponent, but they're typically very weak. Ragna's felt very genuine, so I greatly appreciated that from him. But in any case, that's all for the Swiss rounds with 7-2. I did qualify for the top cut. I wasn't one of the players who missed. I feel bad for Mal because he did miss, but I wasn't the player who missed. Yay! And so I will be back in 2 weeks, real time, but probably tomorrow in YouTube time with my top cut match, and we'll see how that one goes.